Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining in today. My name is Zonzi. I'm the host of the Showcase AMA series here on the Polygon Discord. Today, we got a very special guest with us from OVIX Protocol. We got Hossam. I hope I'm saying that right. And he's the CTO of OVIX. How are you doing today?
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Very happy to have you here. Really excited for this session. I know we got some really exciting things to talk about. But before we jump into that, before we jump into OVIX, let's talk about your background. Like, what's your backstory? What were you doing before crypto, and what got you into the space?
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, my background revolves mainly about software, obviously. I started the journey 12 years ago, where I worked at different startups, mainly startups, not big corporates, and later on, I um, I started founding my own startups in different parts of the world, last of which was supply chain and logistics software product that was serving companies in the B2B sector. At this time, a very close friend of mine introduced me to crypto. I mean, I heard about crypto since 2012, but I was really skeptical about it until I got properly introduced to it. I dug deeper, read the Satoshi paper a few times to be able to understand it because it's really complex. And yeah, once I got this click and I understood what's going on and the potential of decentralization and so on, it was like a no-brainer that this is what I should be doing for the future of my career. So yeah, then I founded GoGoCoin and then OVIX, which we'll speak about during this AMA, and happy to answer all your questions.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like a lot of people have like a similar story in the sense that it takes them a little bit to get into crypto, but once they're into it, like something clicks and they're just like really into it, like all in on crypto. So yeah, that's cool to hear. Like I'm similar in that sense.
Exactly,
Totally,
exactly.
very passionate about the industry. But anyway, so what is OVIX and what inspired it? How'd you get involved?
Yeah, so OVIX is a lending protocol that's living on Polygon, and we're actually positioning it as the core money market on Polygon because like the available money markets on Polygon are like cross-chain and multi-chain. So we see a huge potential in focusing on Polygon only, and that's one of the USPs of OVIX. Of course, in addition to a lot of features that differentiates OVIX from other lending markets, like the interest rate curves that we innovated in, the risk and research frameworks we use to evaluate different assets, the most importantly also the VE tokenomics, which is heavily inspired by curve finance. I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with the curve wars and curve finance VE tokenomics model. So we kind of took this and applied it on money market because Curve is a DEX or a decentralized exchange. It's not necessarily a lending market. So this required some changes to the dynamics of how it works and so on. But in essence, it allows the market participants to decide on how the main token is emitted and the distribution of this token across different markets in a decentralized way. So it does not become like the protocol decision anymore, and it's more of like a DAO decision on which markets should be receiving how much VIX token as emissions and so on, which opens the door for really interesting use cases like bribing and so on. So yeah, that's I would say the elevator pitch for OVIX.
Fantastic. Oh, I didn't know that. That's incredible. For those of us in the audience who are unfamiliar with the concept of V tokenomics, would you mind like providing a breakdown of what exactly that is?
Yeah, definitely. So the VE stands for vote escrow, and what it means actually is that you lock the main token or the main governance token, which is VIX, in exchange for the vote escrow VIX, which is what we call VE VIX. And this VE VIX token that you receive after locking allows you to do a lot of interesting things on the protocol. Most importantly, you can vote on how much VIX every market receives because every market has two channels or two streams of interest. The first one being like the normal APY, that is governed by the interest rate curve, like any normal bank, and the other one is the VIX stream. So every market receives interest regarding the APY, and in addition to this, it receives VIX token based on how much emission is decided by the community for this specific market. So, for example, let's say you have the USDC market, and then you personally deposited your funds in the USDC market. It's of your interest that this market receives the highest rewards, obviously, to be able to maximize your yield, correct? And to do this, all you have to do is to lock your VIX tokens, take your VE-VIX tokens, go to the vote UI and vote on the USDC market. And the more votes this USDC market gets, the more VIX it will receive as rewards, the higher the APR gets on this specific markets. So it's like a really innovative concept that again was inspired by Curve. And I don't think that a lot of lending markets have experimented with that concept. So yeah, and it also opens the door again for bribing. So for example, if you have a market for a protocol, this protocol can run bribing program to allow its users to vote for this specific market in exchange for some other token or something like that. Pretty sure you already saw this with the abracadabra on Curve. It's pretty much similar to this, but in the context of a lending market.
Yeah, that's a really cool concept, like being able to vote for emissions on different pools. It reminds me, like, the closest similarity I can think of is Cheetah, but you guys are like very different from them because with them you you make a vault, deposit collateral, and then borrow their stablecoin against it. But you guys, like, if I were to deposit collateral on OVIX, I'm not making a vault, am I? And I'm not limited to
Yeah.
like one stable coin. There's like all different types of assets that I can borrow, correct? Like,
Yeah, that's right. It's a bit different from QiDAO. So QiDAO has this voting power. They call it Qi power, and the dynamics is a bit different here. And by the way, there's a MI market on OVIX, which because QiDAO is one of our partners, and we call them like brother protocol. So this also opens the door for very interesting interactions between both protocols. For example, you can like mint some MI and then take it, deposit it into OVIX as collateral, borrow another asset against it, then send this asset back to MI, mint more MI, put it in OVIX, and so on. So it kinds of loops your assets for maximal potential yield from both protocols. So that's one of the very fun interactions you can do with both protocols. And of course, users need to do their own research on how much yield they will be receiving from a play like that. But yeah, definitely, when you deposit funds as collateral in OVIX, you're not necessarily creating any vaults, but you're just depositing to this market, and there's nothing stopping you from depositing to actually every market you see on OVIX. It's totally acceptable and it's totally fine.
yeah, that's a really interesting way to use both dApps. I never thought of that myself, so that's really cool. But
Yeah,
yeah, one
I mean,
thing.
follow our Twitter. We post like a lot of these strategies on how to use OVIX as an underlying infrastructure, actually, that you can maximize the yield you're getting from other protocols just by putting OVIX in your like strategy composition. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff we post on our Twitter. So stay tuned.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm a huge fan of those French charts, so I definitely recommend everyone goes and gives OVIX a follow because they definitely do drop lots of great threads and French charts. Um, so one thing that I found really interesting though when I was like experimenting with OVIX is, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like you could like mix and match like collateral and like what assets you're borrowing, like so I was wondering like how that works because with like some protocols you like set up like a vault and it's like like a, I don't know how you describe it, like a single instance, right? Like a your health factor is like isolated in that um, in that vault, right? And then you can have like different vaults with different health factors. Whereas with this is it's just like is it like a like you can have like a whole mix and match of like um, collaterals and borrowed assets, and is it like all one health factor or is it like isolated loans? How does that work?
Yeah, so on OVIX, it's kind of mix and match scenario. So it's only one health factor. For example, you can deposit Bitcoin and borrow Ethereum against it, or Matic, or whatever. So it's not it doesn't work like isolated markets because like we follow different strategy, right? Like isolated markets have its own use cases, but in my opinion, it kind of fragments the liquidity of the protocol, and it's not very beneficial for the liquidators. The liquidators are like a very important party in any lending protocol if you want to keep it healthy. So yeah, the way OVIX works is that it's totally mix and match kind of thing. You can deposit any asset as collateral, excuse me, and you can also borrow any asset against any collateral that you have.
Sweet. Okay, yeah, this is phenomenal. I want to dive deeper into like the VIX pre-mining that's happening, but before we do that, I want to ask, like, you guys have been live now on Polygon for how long? Like, I guess I'm wondering what your development journey has looked like. Like, how big is the team behind OVIX, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so we've been in the beta phase for about 5 months now, and this phase helps us actually test the protocol in a production environment with real market conditions. So that involves like the core logic behind borrowing, lending, liquidations, interest rates, and so on, and also like the VE tokenomics. We've been testing this in a closed environment. So yeah, that's our stage right now at OVIX. So it's not fully public yet. It's I would call it like the beta version of OVIX. And then down the radar, we'll be launching the VIX token because it has not been launched yet. And then we'll be also launching a new models for the interest rate curves, which I can talk about in more details later down the road. And not only this, but we're also looking into integration with Polygon supernets to kind of allow isolated blockchains for fintechs and different companies to get direct access to the liquidity on Polygon without users having to leave their chain at all. So if there's like a fintech running its own blockchain, we're looking to give them access to borrow assets from Polygon and supply assets on Polygon without having to go through the full bridging experience and so on. So it's like a one-click solution from the SuperNet perspective. That's also one really great feature in our roadmap.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal feature, that fintech access to OVIX from their own like spun up chains, the private company chains. I don't know what you call that, but yeah, no, that's really cool. That will be implemented. I think that's huge value for the protocol.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely, and it's only possible because of Polygon supernets. Like supernets allows you to spin up a whole new blockchain on the Polygon infrastructure. So it makes like the barrier to entry for fintechs really small, and they would be very easily able to start having their own blockchains and so on without worrying about the security or infrastructure layer because it's being taken care of by Polygon already. So yeah, it's kind of a phenomenal product, and we're looking to maximize on it.
so you mentioned earlier that you guys are solely focused on Polygon since so many other lending markets are just like big multi-chain. Like if you just want to corner Polygon. So I'm curious, like, do you think you will only be deployed on the proof of stake chain, or do you think you guys will expand to other chains like the ZK EVM when that rolls out, or like would you have some sort of like bridge to it? Or, like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Being on ZK EVM is also in our roadmap. We still don't have a lot of details to share there, but yeah, definitely. Like we see ZK EVM as a part of the Polygon ecosystem, and yeah, according to our plans, we would be very happy to launch our product there, and of course, like maintaining the connection between like the POS and the ZK EVM counterpart. Yeah, so also wanted to mention this due to the fact that we're solely focusing on Polygon. This allows us to establish like stronger partnerships with other projects that are Polygon native, like for example Cheetah, Stader Labs, and those great guys who are doing also great job in developing the ecosystem, which is also putting OVIX in like a better position when it comes to like the competition on Polygon, of course.
Yeah, most definitely. Partnerships are key for getting ahead, and those are some really key partnerships there. Um, so, talking about like where you're at in your development journey, you're saying you guys are still in like a beta public testing phase, public beta testing phase. And you're rolling out the pre-mining of the VIX token. So it sounds like DeFi users on Polygon have an opportunity to become a day one holder of the OVIX token.
Correct.
Yeah, that's exciting. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, so the pre-mining program basically gives the protocol users the chance to start earning pre-mined VIX token, and this means that you will hold your reward balance in the pre-mined VIX, and once the VIX token is live, you'll be eligible to start claiming your rewarded balance for the VIX token. So it kind of allows us and everyone to start playing around with the rewards, seeing how the system works, how the VIX reward work, without actually waiting for the VIX token to launch. So yeah, we actually launched it less than 24 hours ago. So yeah, please everyone in this AMA, I'm inviting you to go to OVIX, play around with it. I'm pretty sure everyone will like it because we decided to start also with high yields, high APRs to attract everyone into the protocol. I'm pretty sure you like the APRs there. That's pretty good alpha from my side.
Yeah, most definitely. And I've got all your links in the chat website, Twitter, Discord, Telegram, so everyone knows where to go to get involved with OVIX. The UI is super sleek, very nice. Um, I know you mentioned you had a slide deck maybe that you wanted to go through potentially.
It's I can share it after the AMA because I had to do some amendments to it. It was mainly directed for investors, so I'd not share it without updating the
Oh
slide deck.
yeah, no worries, no
But yeah,
worries.
I can definitely share it on whatever channel you tell me to.
Yeah, I mean, totally. If you'd like to, you can. You don't have to. Or if you want to show your website off, in a screen share, you can, but you don't have to
Yeah,
do that either. Totally
yeah,
up
yeah.
to you what we
Let's
do.
just hang on for a second.
I feel like a live product display, if possible, would be phenomenal.
Yeah, doing preparing the web browser. Just a moment. Yeah, so let's get started. Share.
Frankie has asked if you have an Android or iOS application.
Right now we have only a website, a web application basically, but it works on all modern mobile browsers. So if you're using Chrome on Android or Safari on iOS, you should be able to interact with it, and then also Brave browser, of course. So yeah, we don't have a plan to to create native application at the meantime, and that's why we made sure that the website works flawlessly on all mobile devices.
And it looks like you support MetaMask and Wallet Connect.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, we can see your screen, and yeah, the
Yes,
website looks super sleek and clean.
yeah. So basically, this is like the main UI for OVIX. This one is like the active beta version that I was talking about. But for the sake of the demo, I'm gonna use the staging one. It's also alpha. So yeah, if you can see here, this is a direct transact integration, which allows users to deposit money from their credit cards directly into the protocol. So I'm gonna try to demo it, but okay.
So essentially, it's like a fiat on ramp that will allow people to go right from
Exactly.
fiat into a. Well, that's amazing. Supplying collateral.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'll try connecting here with accounts.
I noticed that there's epochs for the pre-mining of the VIX token. So how do these epochs work?
Yeah, so epochs actually, if you check here, it says that rewards are only updated every epoch. Every epoch lasts approximately for 1 week. So after every week, we have our off-chain nodes running on-chain queries to calculate how much every user has been contributing to the protocol on each day. And then it takes the average for that and calculates how much rewards he should be getting. And the interactions that make some user eligible for that is actually supplying an asset or borrowing an asset. So you can actually earn money or earn pre-mined VIX just by borrowing other tokens. So it's pretty interesting.
So
And
essentially, like one can earn money on their collateral as well as their debt.
correct, correct. And not only that, but you can. So for example, this is one of the accounts I've been playing with. So this account you see here, I'm supplying Ethereum, and I'm also borrowing Ethereum. So you can supply ETH, then borrow against it, and then supply the ETH again, and then borrow against it. It's kind of do this loop, and this makes you actually eligible to get more rewards on both the supply and the borrow side. So that's one hack that users could do. And yeah, don't tell anyone I told you this.
I won't. That's an interesting strategy to like lever up the size of your position. I like that. That's some good alpha.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. And yeah, everything else is pretty straightforward. So here you see all the markets that are available. We have Matic, Ethereum, DAI, MAI, USDT, Bitcoin, USDC, and Matic X, which is the latest money market that we listed on OVIX. And we'll also be posting like strategies on how to leverage this market to actually capture a very good amount of yield. So again, stay tuned for the Twitter posts that we always send. Apart from this, if you open a market, it tells you everything that is related to this market. So the supply APY, which is again directly impacted by the interest rate curve, and this is the VIX APR that and here it essentially tells you how much APR in terms of pre-mined VIX you'll be getting if you deposit or borrow to this market. And then the other metadata stuff like borrow limit, the borrow limit used, the loan to value, which is like the collateral factor, and the amount of the supply borrowed. So yeah, pretty much straightforward stuff. We made sure that it's really easy for the user to understand because we understand that not everyone is familiar with how lending markets work. So if you hover at any number on the protocol, it will tell you what exactly is it doing and like all the information you need in order to be taking like informed decisions on how you should be interacting with the protocol. Up here, it's like the borrow limit. It tells you how much out of your borrow limit you have consumed. And here's the health factor. It tells you what is your health of all your positions combined. And this health factor is actually what you should be watching for from a high level, because if it gets below 1, your account is becomes subject to liquidation, which can which means like any party can perform a liquidation in your on your account, necessarily buying your collateral at a premium. So you'll be losing a bit of money if you get liquidated. So yeah, I'd recommend to always watch for this health factor and make sure it never gets below 1. I recommend some range from 1.3 to 1.5. It's like the balanced number that I personally love to interact at, but of course it's up to you to use to drive this number to whatever value you want, as long as you know what you're doing. And actually here, when you're borrowing any asset, there's this button Safe Max, which allows you to borrow the amount that keeps you at this safe threshold. So it's pretty decent for the new users. Just use this safe max and don't go above it unless you know what you're doing. Yeah, what else? After the VE tokenomics launch, there will be another link here for the vote, which you can click and see all the markets and you actually can vote for it. Every epoch, again, the voting epochs is a bit different from the rewards epochs. The vote epochs runs at 10-day interval, approximately, of course, and yeah, that's pretty much it. It's really simple, right? There's nothing complex about it. We try to make it as simple as possible.
Yeah, most definitely. It's very intuitive. The interface really easy to understand. Um, I definitely have a couple of questions though. So the first one would be regarding like the interest rates. Um,
Yeah.
they're like dynamic interest rates. You mentioned something about a curve too. I was just curious, like how this whole dynamic interest rate system works.
Yeah, definitely. So we look at interest rate as a multi-phase innovation. So at the very beginning, we started with what we call jump rate models. And this is a bit different from linear models because it allows you to incentivize markets which is highly utilized. Maybe before jumping into that, let me explain briefly what is a market utilization. So let's say this protocol has no money at all, and then you have some depositor who put 1 Ethereum here, and then you don't have any other people or parties who are borrowing Ethereum. That puts your ETH market at the minimum utilization. Why? Because it has assets supplied, but no one has been borrowing these assets, right? And when this happens, the interest rate pushes down the APYs or the interest for this market to actually incentivize borrowing this asset. So like this APY would become like minimal, meaning that you can borrow from this market without actually paying interest rate like a very low interest rate to borrow from this market. On the other hand, if this market is highly utilized, meaning that if you have here 1 ETH and then someone has borrowed zero point 0.9 ETH, this leaves you with only zero point 0.1 ETH available for other borrowers, right? And this means the ETH market is very highly utilized. When this scenario happens, the interest rate does the vice versa. It boosts the market APR as high as possible to incentivize suppliers to deposit more ETH to be getting like high APYs on their deposits. So this is the dynamics of interest rates that is used in any lending market, including banks, by the way. So yeah, in most protocols, this interest rate is kind of linear. So you have like the higher the utilization, the higher the APR, the APY in a linear fashion. But what OVX did is that it added a kink to any utilization greater than 80%, meaning that it the interest rate is linear up to the 80% utilization point, and then there's like a much higher or much steeper slope of interest, which will boost the APRs even higher in highly utilized market to even incentivize the suppliers even more to be depositing assets to OVX. So that's the first phase. And if I can draw it to you, I think it would make sense. So I don't know, try draw.io maybe. This, yeah. So let's say this is like the interest rate curve. This is linear. Here you have so yeah, let's say this is the y-axis stands for the APR and the APY, and the x-axis stands for the utilization. So most lending protocols work like this. The APR curve is kind of linear, right? So the first innovation that we did is that we made this APY rate look like that. So as you see, when you reach this point, which let's say 80% utilization, the curve kind of is boosted higher to increase the APYs even more. So that was the first step, and the second step actually is what we call curved interest rates. And by this, we are just looking to smoothen this part of the interest rate curves, the part that I'm highlighting. Because at this part, you start seeing very interesting interactions, and it kind of suddenly increases the APRs, which might be inconvenient to some users. So what we're looking to do in our next interest rate release is to smoothen this part to make it kind of like this, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So essentially, like how this seems to me is, it's kind of like financial incentives around like participation and efficiency, like based on supply and demand.
Exactly, exactly. That's basically it. And the last phase would be making this whole curve dynamic, which means it reacts to actually also external factors, like other protocols, like the TVLs on other protocols, and a lot of other factors that we can also go into like later. But yeah, that's the plan basically. So it's a three phase process. We're currently in the first phase, which is the jump rate. We call this a kink. The second phase is to smoothen it. The third phase is to actually make it also reactive to external factors that's happening beyond the OVIX scope. So yeah, pretty much interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's incredibly interesting. I think it's really cool how much like innovation is going on with this project. How many unique things you're doing to like differentiate yourself from other lending markets. One thing you touched on that I want to dive a bit deeper into is the liquidation system. So you mentioned like people can come along and liquidate others if they have a bad health factor. I'm really curious how that all works. It's like a decentralized liquidation system or something. Oh, it looks like we've lost our guest. I'm sure they will be right back. They must have just accidentally exited when they ended the screen share. Frankie, I'll try my best to answer your question. What makes you specifically different than other exchanges? Is this DeFi? Um, so yes, this is definitely decentralized finance, right? Like we look at, so yeah, cool. So some key advantages like would be I myself, as like a DeFi user, can supply collateral for users to borrow, right? Like I can become a lender, and I can also borrow whatever I'd like against my collateral. It could be like a whole mix and match of different crypto assets. And then we could also like participate in ownership, revenue, and like voting of the direction the protocol decides to go in. I'm going to just give Hassam a ping and see where he went. I'm assuming his internet just cut out, and he'll be back in a moment, hopefully. But either way, it's been a really good session so far. We've gotten so much alpha regarding like how OVIX works and their pre-mining program, as well as like various strategies we can use to maximize like our usage of OVIX. Extract the most that we can from it. So yeah.
Can you hear me?
Hey, welcome back. Yeah, I was starting to get worried you weren't coming back.
Actually, I've been speaking for 5 minutes, so where,
Oh,
where did I cut out?
oh my gosh. Okay, so as soon as you ended your screen share, I was asking how the liquidation system works, and then you disappeared,
Okay,
and I've
okay.
just been trying to.
Yeah, yeah. Apologies for that.
No,
So
no
yeah,
worries.
I've been speaking to myself for the last few minutes. But anyways, so yeah, liquidations happens when your position becomes unhealthy, and an unhealthy position is basically a position that has over debt, meaning that you deposit some assets and then you borrow against these assets. But let's say the asset that you deposited and used as collateral falls in price due to market movement. In that case, the protocol sees you as an unhealthy account because the amount of assets you supplied are now worth less money than the assets that you borrowed, right? So in that case, it allows any participant on the protocol to basically liquidate you. And by that, it means liquidation basically means that a liquidator can repay part of your debt in exchange for your collateral at a premium. So it's beneficial for the liquidator to do that to be able to get your collateral at a discount. And this discount right now sits at 10% on OVIX. Not only this, but our research team has also come up with a DeFi metric that we call toxicity number. And you can find resources on that on our Twitter and website. And this toxicity number tells you how toxic is a specific asset in terms of the available liquidity of this asset across dexes and across chains, most importantly, of course, Polygon, with regards to how much of this asset is being used as collateral. So let's say there's an exotic asset that it, lives on a lending protocol, and a lot of users has been depositing this asset and using it as collateral. But this asset does not have a lot of liquidity on decentralized exchanges. This means that this asset is highly toxic or has a high toxicity number, and essentially meaning that it becomes less appealing to liquidators to basically liquidate this asset. So yeah, like we use all this research terms and everything to decide about protocol parameters for every asset that we list on our markets, and to be able to basically approve or deny specific assets from being present on our markets.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I hadn't heard of that toxicity concept regarding like liquidating assets before, so that's pretty cool. Dropping some knowledge on me. So yeah, essentially, like you guys have a very kind of like rigorous review process of regarding the collaterals you choose to list on OVIX. Like I noticed you only have 8 different types of assets right now, and like they're all pretty safe assets, like less volatile, more mainstream, like not exotic. So I guess like what I'm wondering is later down the line, after this pre-mining concludes, do you think that there's like the potential for more exotic assets to get listed should the community vote on it?
Yeah, so it's a two-layer process basically. So sometimes we totally reject an asset because we think it's going to be dangerous on the protocol, especially if it's used as collateral. And once an asset passes this screening, it might be subject to a DAO proposal. But to be honest, that's not happening right now because again, we're still in the beta phase. But down the road, yeah, that's totally our vision to basically like include the DAO and the community in every decision that we make regarding the protocol. And by the way, the toxicity number thing is actually created by us, so no other project or protocol has used it before. It's like a metric that was invented in-house, and we totally believe that everyone in DeFi should be using this metric to evaluate like the risk of listing assets on lending markets.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me as a criteria or a way of like evaluating assets. Definitely think it's a good standard to adopt. Um,
Yeah.
Frankie asked, so is it asymmetric deposits?
What does it mean? Can you
Not a
elaborate on that?
100% sure. Frankie, maybe you want to like elaborate on what you mean by that. Also, another really good question that came in was, is this DeFi? So I don't know. It's a bit of a fun question. Perhaps you want to like, if you could elaborate on all the ways like that OVIX is DeFi. Like, what about it makes it DeFi, and like all the advantages of it being like decentralized? That'd be super cool.
Yeah, definitely, because like basically the whole borrowing and lending interactions happen in a decentralized way, meaning via smart contracts. Also, the interest rates for every market is not decided by us as a party or as the protocol developers, but rather by smart contracts, which are programmed obviously to always be decentralized. Not only that, but the token emission and distribution to the different markets is not decided by us. It's also decided by the DAO. via the vote escrow process that we've been speaking about. So yeah, every aspect in that puts it in a more decentralized way. And yeah, of course, it's DeFi because you're borrowing and lending, so that's a financial activity, right?
Yeah, and just to like add on that, you have no idea who you're interacting with on Ovix. You know, it's completely anonymous. You're just like borrowing and lending money with strangers, and it's like only possible thanks to these like
Exactly,
hard coded smart contracts. Um,
exactly. Yeah.
okay, so jumping back to Frankie's asymmetric deposits question, like 50-50 Matic to Vic, or you can just deposit 100 Matic and get your Vic, or do you have to get Vic and match amount with Matic? Oh, I think he's asking about how the Vic's pre-mining works. So like I'm assuming it's like on
Okay.
like a timed farming thing. Like over time you can farm the token. How does that all work?
Yeah, so basically, if you deposit an asset, you get rewards, and if you borrow the same asset, you also get rewards. So if you again, if you even loop, meaning that you deposit some asset and then borrow the same asset, take it and deposit it again, and so on, like you're basically getting almost double the rewards. So yeah, it's equally weighted across all markets and across the borrowing and the lending side. If I hope this answers your question, Frankie.
Yeah, so essentially you can earn on both your collateral and your loans, um, in a like a similar fashion to yield farming, where it's like a as time goes on you accrue more tokens. Um, and
Correct.
yeah, guys, I want to encourage you all to just like ask any questions you have. While Hossam is here, he's the CTO of Ovix, so it's a great opportunity to ask like their core team directly any questions you might have. I know he's done like a really good job like providing a high level overview of everything and like sharing lots of alpha with us already. But so like definitely want to encourage everyone to ask any questions that they do have. One thing that I'm like curious about is like we talked about like your development journey up into like where you guys are at right now. What's next in the pipeline or the roadmap for you guys? Like what are you like what can we expect in the short term or long term from Ovix? Like what's the vision?
Yeah, so short-term vision is to actually launch the token, get started and activate the voted escrow mechanics, and to launch the curved interest rate model. That's very short term. Long term, again, we are looking to become the core market on Polygon, meaning that we want OVIX to be associated with Polygon when the word lending market is mentioned. And for this, we have an action plan including a lot of things, most importantly, the integration with Supernets, which we are also pretty sure that it aligns with Polygon chains. And this alone is not going to solve the whole problem of like isolated blockchains, because we don't want blockchains to be 100% isolated, right? We still want those isolated blockchains to have access to real liquidity from like the mainstream blockchains. And I think Polygon is like in the best position for that, given that it's really cheap in terms of gas fees, really highly secure, highly decentralized, and so on. So that would be our long-term vision.
Yeah, most definitely. And I gotta say, like, I'm personally super fired up to have such a cool project and such a cool, unique, and innovative project like Ovix on the Polygon
Thank you,
network.
man.
Yeah, absolutely. So one question that came in earlier is like, what makes you specifically different than other like lending markets? So like, I don't know, who do you see as your competitors, and like, what do you see as your key competitive advantages?
Yeah, without mentioning names, there are many lending protocols out there with like respectable TVLs, but I think what puts OVIX apart is like the different vision, because we're not looking to capture the highest TVL possible. in a horizontal way, but rather in a vertical way, because we want to be only focused on Polygon, because we totally believe that this is like the right thing to approach the problem. And again, it also gives us access for like stronger partnerships with brother and sister protocols who are like mainly focused on Polygon. So yeah, we have a lot of blockchains, a lot of lending protocols out there, but we'd like to be only focusing on Polygon at least at the meantime and foreseeable future. Apart from that, the features that I've mentioned, the voted escrow, tokenomics, the dynamic interest rate curves, the supernet integration, basically providing liquidity to isolated blockchains, and there are actually a lot of other features that I can never list down in one AMA. But there's also something that we have down the radar, which we call the 24-hour liquidation probability, and it's going to be like a metric shown on the DApp that tells you how likely that your account will be liquidated in comparison to the other accounts to the protocol. So this kind of helps like the degens that want to play it at the edge by having like a low health factor to be able to evaluate the situation better in terms of like risk and so on. So yeah, I mean, all this, I truly believe that the stuff I mentioned puts down apart from the rest of the competition.
Yeah, it almost felt like you were just doing a recap of everything we've already talked about. Like
Yeah,
you guys have so
yeah, yeah.
much interesting, unique like innovations going on. So yeah, it's really cool to see. Definitely going to be able to compete within the space and make a good name for yourselves. Cool. One thing that I totally we got to talk about when we're running short on time is security. We haven't talked about security at all. Like, you know, what
Hmm.
how are we keeping users' funds safe? Is there any audits or like are you guys using any oracles? Let's just talk about like the security features of the protocol, I guess.
Yeah. So first of all, OVIX is based on Compound code base, and for any part of Compound that we have changed, we have run a series of audits on it from like reputable firms, including PackShield, Omnitia, Watchplugs, and others. We also had like internal auditors always checking the developer's code, trying to find out flaws or like potential vulnerabilities in the code. So I'd say it's pretty safe. And in terms of the economic risk or economic security, we only list assets that has a Chainlink Oracle for. And yeah, like there are a lot of Oracle providers out there, but we don't like it's a hard requirement. Like if we think an asset is really good and it has a very great potential, but it does not have a Chainlink Oracle, we immediately like reject the application because Chainlink is kind of a hard requirement for us because it's like the most secure Oracle out there. So yeah, that's pretty much in summary how we look at security. We take it very seriously. Any code that is deployed or pushed goes through a series of code reviews, security reviews, different types of testing. So unit testing for every part of the code. We have almost 100% coverage for the unit tests for the code. And every new feature that we develop, we actually audit from the same reputable firms that I mentioned, and we're looking also to increase the this firm's pool to include like more good names in the audit space.
Cool. Well, guys, I just want to once again encourage you all to drop some questions in the chat if you have any. Well, we're lucky enough to have the CTO of Ovix himself here. So Frankie's got a question. They're wondering where they can pick up some Ovix token. Is it currently only available on your platform through the pre-mining program, or is it like available on a DEX yet?
Yeah, so the VIX token is not deployed yet. It's not live yet. We envision it being live in the next 1 to 2 months because we're in talks with a lot of centralized exchanges and also DEXs. But for now, you can book your VIX position by just collecting those pre-mining rewards. So any pre-mined rewards you receive today, is basically pegged one to one with the VIX token once it's launched. And yeah, like the pre-mining rewards basically are not claimable in the form of tokens, but it stores your eligibility and your pre-mined VIX in our smart contracts, so that once the token launches, you'll be able to claim those VIX tokens right away.
Yeah, so Frankie asks possibility of airdrop. So essentially like what I'm the way I'm understanding this is you're like kind of like reserving your allocation of the airdrop for once the OVIX token launches.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. We're also in discussion about another airdrop for everyone who participated to the protocol since we launched. Also, those guys who helped us test and polish our product, because we have a community of beta testers and other guys who really helped us a lot in reaching the stage that we are at right now. So we're in discussion on how to basically reward everyone who helped OVIX be where it is today by facilitating another airdrop that is totally separate from the pre-mining. More on that later.
Yeah, most definitely. Can't spill too much alpha in one session.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, one thing I was thinking earlier when I first heard your announcement was that it's pretty crazy to be like launching this kind of program, the pre-mining program, in the middle of the market that we are in right now. Like everything's down pretty significantly, but I guess like if you got like a good product that you're confident in or a good DApp, it doesn't matter the state of the market. You can push out a product or and do all right. What do you think?
Definitely, definitely. I mean, like the best products came out of bear markets actually, not from bull markets. That's like a fact. Another thing is, and a special thing about lending protocols is that they fit well with both bear and bull markets, right? Because you can use lending markets to basically short assets. So if you think an asset is going down in value, there's nothing stopping you from shorting it by let's say borrowing it, depositing some collateral, borrowing that asset, and directly selling it on a DEX. And this is essentially like shorting the asset. So yeah, lending markets aligns well with both sides of the markets. So yeah, that's one of the reasons also we're pushing OVIX so hard during the bear market. And I like personally, the probably the only thing I like about bear markets is that they give space for like great teams to focus on what they're building and actually building, instead of just speculating on like shit coins and projects that does not have like any real value behind it. Because in bull markets, some token without any use to anyone can get released. It can go 100x and so on. So yeah, bear markets are like the best time for actually mature projects to be built and released, and like you start feeling or start realizing the value of that in the next bull market, basically.
Fantastic. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, this is a really good question coming in from War 199191. They say, I'm debating on building on Polygon. Why did you choose Polygon over other chains?
Yeah, so a lot of reasons basically. So first of all, Polygon being proof of stake means that it's um, it's not as computationally expensive as Ethereum, for example. I mean, previously, obviously, because the merge happened yesterday, but that's not the only reason. Other reasons being that Polygon not only offers like a mainstream blockchain, but rather a suite of products and a suite of solutions that you can use and compose together to basically build like very advanced infrastructures. So like we're very fascinated by this fact, like ZK EVM, Supernets, Polygon ID, a lot of great stuff that's being built by the Polygon team that that really attracted us to focus on this chain. We truly believe in it. And apart from this, like me personally as an investor, not as a developer, when I first entered blockchain, It was in DeFi summer, like the gas fees was high on Ethereum, and everyone said, "Oh, okay, Ethereum is a whale chain," and so on. So the most logical thing to do at times like this is to basically find another chain, and most of the time, and I'm sure most of you agree with me on this, Polygon is like the 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 main chain that you will visit after Ethereum, especially if you're new to blockchain and crypto. And this was the case with me, with everyone I know, and so on. And we want to be capturing this sector of users, the guys who just entered blockchain, they don't know what they should be doing, and so on. So normally Polygon is the place they go after Ethereum.
Um, yeah, for sure, I can agree with all that. And just to add on, one of my favorite things about working on at Polygon is we're so hands on with every single team. Like I don't know if it's the same on other blockchains. If you build on a different chain, um, you might get completely ghosted by the the team, but Polygon will always like reach out to you
Yeah,
and like be hands on and talk to you and figure out your needs and where they can help. So
of
that's a
course,
really
of
cool
course.
thing. Makes me passionate about it. One question I often ask projects, and we're running out of time basically, so this will probably be like the last question I have, is like how what are their plans to like drive adoption to the platform? But I also want to talk to you about you guys have a ambassador program, don't you?
Yep, that's true.
So what's that all about? How's that going?
The ambassador program basically allows anyone to be an OVIX ambassador, giving them access to a lot of like special benefits. But yeah, in essence, it allows people to work for, like and contribute to OVIX not only as a user, but as an ambassador as well. And I'm pretty sure we have some resources that we can share on the dynamics of this program. If you need to dive deeper into that, I can link you some resources from our marketing department that can explain everything in details to you and about the benefits of becoming an ambassador.
Yeah, most definitely. I think it's so cool that you guys have a ambassador program, and I think it has the best name out of like all the ambassador programs in the space. Um,
Yeah, and they've been super helpful to the protocol. To be honest, we see ambassadors as part of the team, not like external users. We feel like it's not only the developers and the main team, but also like the ambassadors are pretty core to what we're doing. So yeah, pretty happy about that, to be honest.
I want to make sure Max One has a really important question. He's wondering, does the pre-mining calculation is it done every epoch, and what if users don't claim the token at the end of the epoch? Will it be locked during the next epoch? And like, I guess I'll like add on to that. Were you saying that it's like constantly calculating like each day? Like how does
Yeah, yeah, precisely. So first of all, you don't claim the pre-mine tokens. But your balance keeps increasing. So that's like the first point to clear out. Second, the scores are calculated based on a formula that calculates your contribution to the protocol with respect to the other players at the protocol as well. And there's like a daily snapshot that is taken, and then every epoch, which is approximately 7 days, your score across the 7 days is averaged out, and this produces like the final epoch score, which is then used to calculate how much VIX you'll be getting exactly. So let's say you have deposited funds today, but at the end of the day you remove the funds from the protocol, then you will be rewarded only on that day. And like as opposed to if you have left the funds for 7 days, then you would have been rewarded for like 7 days. So this is kind of how it works. And again, you cannot claim them now. So the only thing you need to do is just to interact normally with the protocol. And every epoch, you will see the rewards in the top right box increasing. And once you get some rewards, you can never lose them. They only increase, they never decrease.
Sweet. Thanks so much for clarifying on that. We are a little bit over time, so I'm just curious. Is there anything that you want to talk about that we haven't talked about already?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything about the protocol. And yeah, if there are any questions from any of the audience, I'd be happy to answer it. And yeah, last but not least, make sure to check Twitter, the website, get on our Discord. Like we have a community team that's usually very responsive, and any questions you have will be definitely answered in like a very short time.
Fantastic. Yeah, the OVIX chads have a very strong presence on socials, so that's fantastic to see. I've really enjoyed all this conversation. It's been awesome having you as a guest,
Same here.
Hassam. Dude, awesome meeting you. Really want to do this again sometime in the future, and just like catch up on everything that's new with you and OVIX. So we'll definitely have to schedule that in sometime.
Yeah, of course, I'd be happy to be here again and really enjoyed every part of this conversation. Thanks a lot for having me.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. And thank you so much, everybody, for coming out and listening today. I've dropped all the links in the chat for you to go up and follow up with OVIX. If you want to get involved with their OVIX Chad program, definitely look into that too. It's super cool. And don't sleep on this pre-bindings because it's some pretty serious APRs that you don't want to miss out on. So, not to sound like a shill, I'm not a financial advisor, of course,
That's
but
true. That's
but
very true.
okay. Well, I guess that concludes everything. Thanks again, Hassam. Thanks again, everybody, for joining. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe. Have fun. Bye now.
You too. You too. Thank you very much. Bye bye.